So here we go. I say with great confidence. Now, some of you will know a little bit about baby watching and some of you won't. So I'm trying to do a sort of a little bit more in depth than I did a couple of weeks ago for the Southend Psychology Service. Give them another nods up, they're really fantastic. So it's a little bit more in depth, and I wanted to talk a little bit more as I go along about how we've adapted so that you can still use this programme virtually in your school. Obviously, due to post-COVID, how difficult this is perhaps to get a parent volunteer into a school. So it'll be a mixture of me explaining a little bit about what baby watching is for those that aren't so familiar with it. So I apologise for those who are a little bit more familiar, that you're probably hearing a little bit of old territory. Hopefully you won't mind too much. And we say it's deceptively simple because it really is. I think the best ideas are simple. And I think that's one of its major strengths. And that is just so effective, using a parent and a baby and how their beautiful relationship develops, and that attunement and sensitivity as the parent communicates with their baby, and that dance of relationship and how that evolves as they grow together. And so BASE stands for reducing anxiety, aggression, and promote sensitivity and empathy. And I've put empathy in red because I really wanted to emphasize empathy today. And that's going to be my main focus, because that feels like the most critical skill, actually. And from empathy, everything else grows. So we know that it builds a sense of security, stronger relationships. What's really interesting is how being a group leader really impacts the relationship a teacher has with their students. Because of that sensitive, attuned listening, it really helps develop their relationship with their students. And so it benefits that learning relationship, that tolerance and acceptance of others, that appreciation of diversity. Good mental health comes from the fact that we're feeling secure, and that we're able to express ourselves, and that we're able to express our own emotions and have a framework of language that feels safe to express ourselves. And in that framework, if we understand our language for emotions, that's what I'm feeling, then we can also regulate ourselves better. And all of these things contribute to lower our levels of stress. So baby watching, and this is going to be a really, really simple brush over. Dr. Ronnie Prons, Dr. Karl Heinz Busch, very respected psychiatrists in their field, got together at a conference. This is really, really simplified. Kind of had that sort of napkin moment when they're sort of saying, gosh, I have all this experience in helping children. Why can't we come together with an idea that helps children, a simple program that helps children develop empathy and become kinder towards one another. And that is very simplistically how baby watching was born. We often talk about aggression theory with Dr. Henri Perrons, but also it's actually about sensitivity. And we don't tend to use the word aggression, because we find it a slightly uncomfortable word. But there is positive aggression too, that desire to learn and sort of journey out and explore. We need that for learning and wanting to be independent. But actually a lot of what Dr. Perrons was looking at was sensitivity, and how sensitivity really affects our relationships and our feelings of attachment and safety. And what's wonderful to know is that our sensitivity as teachers or psychologists will really enhance the secure attachment with the children that we're working with. Just this idea of sensitivity is so simple, but that really has an impact on the people that we work with, whether we're teachers, psychologists, whatever. Our ability to be sensitive will enhance the secure attachment. And in baby watching, one of the main things that we do is naming. We name the actions, the motivations, the feelings, and all of that helps to mentalize and also gives us a language development. One that's helpful because it helps us think, oh, that's what okay, so that feeling's okay, and that's what it is, that's what I get. Oh, it's called that. And that's a really helpful thing and very normalizing. Naming is a really important part of baby watching. And it's worth repeating that, of course, our own capacity for empathy is really developed by the modelling of the adults that we are with. And what's wonderful is these practical learning experiences, particularly for something like empathy. Empathy has to be experienced. It's not something you can sort of read in a textbook. It's something you experience and are in relationship with. And so baby watching is a wonderful opportunity to create that opportunity to practice relationship in a way, very simplistically. It's a practical learning experience. What usually happens is that we have a parent and baby come into a class for 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the age of the child, for at least 2 terms. And they are encouraged and supported and helped to deconstruct the relationship by a questioning technique that the group leader uses, who's often the teacher. It's also very powerful, it's very visceral, because the parent and the baby are in the classroom with us. Now, obviously at the moment that is not so practical. And so we're using the next best thing. We have got, which I will explain as we go forward, virtual ways of doing this so that we can include the main part of the experience. And hopefully when we're able to have parent volunteers again, we can have them back in our classrooms. What would usually happen is the children would sit in a circle. And part of that lovely thing is about establishing the boundaries. And that is important when eventually you can hopefully go live again, is the idea that the children co-create the safe space by being involved with setting the boundaries, thinking about how they can be responsible for keeping parent and baby safe. And that's quite an important part of it. That's not so, in a virtual session, they're not actually actively able to co-create the safe space. When the virtual sessions are live, and we have got some schools that are doing that, then they do have to think about sensitivity, certainly in terms of speaking out, which we can look at. Obviously not as intense if it's not live, but it can exist in a live virtual session, but we also have recorded sessions that people can access. What's really important, whether it's virtual or in the classroom, is that the parent and baby are in their little bubble. They just react exactly as normal, as they would at home. And that's one of the benefits actually of the virtual, is that the parent is at home. And so there's something very relaxed about that for them. And that is lovely. So they just react completely as normally. We say 6 weeks until the baby is crawling, walking, because at that point, when the baby is crawling and walking, they would then be walking out towards the children, and then it stops being about the parent-baby relationship. The wonderful thing about virtual is that it can carry on for longer than than when they start walking, because they're not walking towards the children, they're still very much engaged with their parent, so we're still able to watch the relationship. So that's one of the advantages of virtual. And of course, observations are made, whether it's virtual or not, by the baby and the parent through the group leaders. The group leader is the one that sort of facilitates the discussion and thinking using what we call graded inquiry. So this graded inquiry, we talked about behaviour, what's happening. So every child can succeed. What's happening? What do you see? What do you notice? Motivation, why did parent and baby? And we always, both of them, parent and baby, because we're looking at the relationship. This is about the relationship teaching us, not just the baby. And how are they feeling? How is baby feeling? How is parent feeling? Can we imagine what their face is saying? Can we imagine what we're hearing? And what would you do if you were the parent, or what would you do if you were the baby? And finally, how do you think you'd feel if you were the baby? How do you think you'd feel if you were the parent? Children often struggle with how would it feel to be the parent. They can imagine being the baby so much more easily. And so it's really good that there's this balance of both, and to encourage them to think about, what would it be like to be the mummy? What is she feeling? And I think that's actually a really good opportunity for children to think about what it's like for the parent. So we're just going to give you a little clip, and it's about 2.5 minutes long, of how those questions might work in a virtual session. And remember, we've got these pre-recorded And we can also work in a live way, which we'll talk about later. So this comes on. Look at baby's face. Look at mummy's face. I wonder what she's trying to tell us. I wonder how mummy feels about it. I wonder what baby thought of that. If we could use our words for her, what do you think she might be saying? And how would she say it? What kind of voice is mummy using? I wonder why. What does she think? What's mummy doing now? I wonder how that feels for mummy and for baby. What do you think she thinks? What do you notice now? I wonder why baby's pushing against her mummy. I wonder what that feels like for mummy. Why do you think she's putting her hands there? Look at how they both gaze at one another. I wonder what that means. Okay. Yeah, and that always delights me whenever I watch it. I've watched it loads of times. We're working with a lovely mummy, so our sessions are not quite as close up as that. They're a little bit wider, but that is a delight to watch. And so this process of sort of asking those questions helps us really think about thoughts, actions, motivations, and feelings. And that idea of I think that you think that I think, and I feel that you feel that I feel. So how would it usually fit in? We would usually find a volunteer parent and baby. And again, that would be the same if you were a setting that wanted to use and actually do these sessions live via Zoom, and we have got a school that is doing that and is working. Or you can use our pre-recorded sessions with a parent and baby that we're currently working with. And therefore you wouldn't need to find your volunteer. The timing is 10 to 30 minutes based on the age. And we say this because it's very much about if baby watching can't be attuned as a process to the group that you're with. So we're matching the group's ability. So if you have a very lively group that aren't, can really only manage 5 minutes, that's okay. And if you've got a group that just are really good at focusing and just, they're just in the moment, then it's okay to go on for longer. We are attuned to the group the setting that we are working with. So there is this lovely flexibility. Once a week for a minimum of 2 terms. And we say a minimum of 2 terms because actually this is a process that is quite in depth. So the first term I tend to find children are very good at going, oh yes, this is happening because. By the second term, they're getting, this is happening, the first time it's usually, this is happening. The second time, this is happening because. So they're linking now behaviour and motivation. And by the sort of end of the 2 terms, and preferably into the 3 terms if you can do it, this is happening because, and it feels like. So we have the whole connection, the series of behaviour, motivation, and feelings. And it just takes time. This is quite an intricate process. And the group leader is often the teacher or another member of school. This happens virtually or non-virtually, it's exactly the same. And then you're supported by an experienced mentor who's often a qualified therapist. I'll talk a little bit about that. It's not like following a textbook of maths and English. It's very much experiential. It's very much in the moment. In some ways, even though we're using pre-recorded, we don't know what's going to happen. It's not so anything can happen, and you have to work in the moment with that. And it's useful to have a mentor to just help you work with that. So what we're doing post-COVID is establishing these virtual live groups. So in one school, we have a group where the mummy is able to Zoom live into the classroom, and they're using that live. And that's as close as you're going to get to a session of a parent baby coming in. But we're also aware that not every parent is going to feel confident with that technology. And so what we've also got is pre-recorded sessions with a mother and a baby that we've been working with. And from that, we've developed a complete virtual package of what we're aiming for is 30 sessions, so it'll go across the whole school year. And what we're doing that is we're also then able to offer you some post-session resources. And we say post-session deliberately because it's very important that the actual baby watching session is experienced in the moment. And those post-session resources are using the recording to sort of help develop the thinking. I'm just going to show you a little clip of those now. So the idea of bubbles. So that on your left, what are they saying? So again, using clips from the video, what are they saying? So thinking about what mummy's saying, thinking about what baby's saying, and imagining their voice and imagining that. Imagine what's happening. So it's sort of describe what you see, so a slightly different way of using that. And then let's tell a story. So you just got the pictures and they can children can invent a story, a narrative. We're finding that, interestingly enough, we get a lot of feedback from teachers saying that the process of baby watching really helps children develop characters' voice so much better. So their ideas of characterization in their own narrative and storytelling is much more improved. What's also interesting is a child's own narrative, because they're able to sort of have this reflected back to them and have themselves seen positively, because every contribution they make is valued. And we've had children who have never said anything talk in baby watching because of this development of this safe space. And this would happen virtually, using virtual sessions or live, because of the way that a child's contributions are valued and that they can all succeed. They can help them sort of imagine themselves and how they tell their own story. So how successful is it? So we found that there's lots of relational change, which is what you'd hope with a program that sort of focuses on relationship, that the play is more cooperative. Children are more able to sort of think about one another and think about the motivations. Their expressive language improves. The confidence and ability to ask, I think that's so important. Children have a framework of asking. I had a lovely story last year from a mentor, was describing they'd gone to see one of our group leaders, and they were watching a session. Mummy was a bit late, and this child was all screwed up in a ball, and they were sort of saying, well, you know, what's baby watching be like for you? And he sort of looked at her and sort of said, and he said, well, I used to growl, and he began to unfurl, but now I can use words to say how I feel. And I think that ability to ask is just so important. And we've had children who've never spoken before. I certainly had in one of my sessions a child who came from a second language. English was a second language, and hadn't spoken for the entire of her primary school experience so far. She was in year 2. Therefore, it made it difficult for asking for anything in the class or making friends. She was desperate to contribute in baby watching, and I hadn't even noticed that she hadn't ever spoken. And so, and the teacher said to me afterwards, that was the first time she's ever spoken. And then it was like the floodgates opened. She realised, oh, this is okay. I can do this. And she was making friends in the playground, and she came and she would ask, teacher, can you please do the coat up for me? And it was just fantastic, because it was just so much more inclusive for her. Kinder behaviours towards each other, more tolerance. I think more tolerance is a big one. Certainly in one of my sessions, mummy was tickling baby and he was squealing with delight. And I said, oh, how many of you, put your hands up if you think baby's enjoying this? not every child put the hand up. I said, I'm really curious. You didn't put your hand up. Oh, no, he hates it. He hates it. I said, that's really interesting. Describe to me exactly what you see. And he said, well, and you can see the conflict. He's laughing. Oh, that's really interesting. What does laughing usually tell us? And this sort of conflict. Oh, but he can't be enjoying it. He can't be. But he's laughing. Well, that tells us he's enjoying it. And I said, yes, I wonder if you don't like being tickled. He goes, oh, I hate it. I said, but what do you see babies experience? Oh, yes, he likes it. And this was the first time this child had thought about, oh, the other can be different to me. And it was this wonderful idea of, oh, this is different, but okay. And a couple of weeks later, something else happened. And I asked a global question, put your hands up if you think. And one of the other children said, but you put your hand up, you don't like that. Because yes, but he does, look at him. And so it was wonderful, this real appreciation for the other. So this idea of appreciation of difference and our kind of behaviours, that increased self-awareness and increased self-esteem. I thought it'd be lovely, rather than me just saying what I think when I get really excited and enthusiastic, is for you to hear what happens by other practitioners and their experience. So this is the voice of children. And I've just put just to the left-hand side, in case it's difficult to hear the clip, I've put a summary of what the child is saying.
I think baby watching is good because it is helping us to learn how to communicate without speaking. I mean, it helps us to communicate with our eyes, not mouth.
Out of the mouth of babes. How absolutely wonderful to understand that communication is not just about somebody speaking. I think that is actually really profound.
Baby watching gives me mixed emotions. It has also helped me to improve in my learning. Baby watching is something I love doing.
And I love the fact it's mixed emotions, because I think there's something really permission giving about sometimes our feelings of frustration, anger, all those other emotions that we don't tend to focus on. What a relief to know that this is something that we as humans, we all experience this. And also that sometimes we can feel several feelings at once. When babies start to walk, this when we think about stopping the sessions and maybe moving to another parent and a baby where it's sort of mid-year. And I remember the baby was getting really excited and one that, really able to move. And I said, well, how are you feeling? One child said, really sad. And I said, oh, why? Why are you feeling so sad? Well, because when he walks, we have to stop seeing him. And I would be really sad about that. So they were really happy that he was succeeding in walking, but at the same time, this meant the sessions would stop and they'd be really sad. So there's a really mixed place. And that's just one example of how we can have several emotions all at once. So I wanted to focus on our question about empathy at the beginning and that idea, and I thought it'd be nice for you to hear from practitioners. So this idea of building a sense of security and stronger relationships, what I find particularly interesting is how it really strengthens the relationships between the teacher and the children.
Lovely opportunity to bond with the children in a different space. In the classroom, we expect so much from the children on a day-to-day basis, particularly with the curriculum as it is now. And it's time and space with them in a gentler, calmer kind of way. It's time to bond and to see reserved children come forward. You see some of the more confident children sit back. And it's really interesting to see where their different behaviours, where they go with it when they sit down and engage in a different environment. It's just a nurturing space.
I think it's a lovely opportunity for teachers. They often say to me, it's such a calm part of the day. And I think it's this wonderful opportunity just to be more still, in many ways more mindful, and just experience that nurturing space. My internet at that point said I had a slightly insecure connection, so I'm really hoping that video played well for you. It looked okay from my end. Fingers crossed it was all right for you guys. And this is Becky again. This video wasn't, so it really did stutter in the middle. So we just got a lovely photograph of Becky. Becky, I must just say this, she's a very creative group leader. And before Babywatching started in her school, she was actually using the guinea pigs and using the same graded inquiry techniques to help the children look at the guinea pigs relationship, which was actually such a lovely way of using baby watching before she actually got a human mummy and baby.
The impact on the whole class, and it has helped evolve those relationships so that they create that safe space together. They have a greater recognition of one another's needs and responses and so on and so forth. And there's a trust that's built from doing baby watching.
And I think that trust is really important. And that's very much about feeling safe, that you can then trust and ask those questions. And this is school teacher Stacey talking about mental health indirectly.
Yes. And they just need little changes in how they interact with each other and how they'll offer help and how they'll ask for help, and they'll maybe do things that you didn't realise they didn't do before. Because sometimes those children can slip between the cracks. Sometimes those children who just get on and seem to be okay. And then something like baby watching, they can suddenly go, no, actually I can talk to you about this thing that's annoying me or bugging me. I can say, actually, I'm not okay at playtime, and I think I'd like you to help me with this, or I think I want some new friends, can you help? And it just opens that door for discussion about emotions.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? To say sometimes I'm not okay, and I'm not okay with somebody else doing this. We can have adapted children that appear very good and don't present outwardly. They may be stressed inside, but they're not presenting outwardly. And this has given them a framework around which say, actually, it's okay, I'm allowed to say that I'm not okay. So I think that's actually so important. This is a great story.
That idea came from a boy who initially did not want to come into the group. Year 6 lad, very aggressive, fighting at lunch times, not engaged in class. And with that intervention of baby watching, complete turnaround. And he was, empathising with the baby, empathising with mum, and his whole behaviour changed. It was just,
I love the story. And so basically the child was getting bigger and was they were thinking about maybe we'll have to stop sessions. And this young man that Alice is telling us about just didn't want that to happen. He loved the session so much. He's thinking, well, we've got to find a way of helping babies stay safe. I tell you what, why don't we go and get all these beanbags from the nursery? If we put them all around, they'll create a really soft barrier. We can sit behind this and the baby will stay safe. And what a wonderful way that this child was able to mentalize and think about that. Yes, because he loved it and wanted it to carry on, but also what a wonderful way to think about how can we do this? How can we create this and help this baby and mummy stay safe? And then about regulation of emotions.
They are learning an emotional literacy. So suddenly, instead of lashing out or bursting out with great big aggressive feelings, they're able to use their words to express themselves. I think for me, the fact that our children are gaining an emotional intelligence and an emotional literacy so that the feelings inside them don't overwhelm them. Yes. They're able to understand their feelings and express them.
Which is a huge relief. And whether we do these sessions virtually or not, the same opportunity is still happening, that they're able to explore and imagine others' feelings. And lowering levels of stress, certainly developing confidence.
I can see the impact straight away with these children all throughout the school. So in their classroom, in the playground. So for instance, I've got children that were very reluctant to talk in the classroom. Some that didn't really talk at all as far as giving their views or answers to anything. Yes. And they've come into our baby watching group. And some of them have wanted to sit very close to me, which was lovely. And then they may whisper an answer or a question in my ear. So that might go for 2 or 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, they choose to lead the group into the room. And I'm kind of looking at them thinking, okay, And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, whoa. And they sat down and their hand is going up to either answer a question or to ask a question.
Yes.
It is unbelievable. And then I see that follow through in the classroom.
Yes.
And the teachers might say to me, oh my goodness, Jackie, this child is really starting to grow in confidence. They're putting their hands up. And I said, yeah.
Which I think is a lovely experience. So how can you become a group leader? Well, obviously you can visit our website, you can talk to me. We're starting our first virtual training sessions. We're going to do three-hour, either training mornings or late afternoons, depending on what suits people, so that they can actually start running groups, hopefully September, October 2020. Virtually, is if we're not able to get mummies and babies into a school with our virtual resource. And so that is very exciting. We start that next week, which I'm super excited about. Not too late to join. We talked a little bit about mentoring. I think it is just worth explaining that a little bit. That a mentor is a helpful, supportive guide from Babywatching who's really experienced. And that can help people develop and hone their skills and help somebody feel supported. As I said, it's not like maths and English where there is 2 and 2 equals 4 and there's definitely one way. Babywatching is incredibly flexible and needs to be attuned to the group you're with. So it's often having the confidence to do that. And I thought it would be lovely for you to hear from someone who is explaining mentoring to us, who's experienced it and is now a mentor herself.
Mentoring is important because sometimes, in the moment of leading a session, you don't pick up on all of the successes or the moments that you've experienced and the questioning, and for someone else to come back and mentor you and say, oh, what about when this happened? And you've just done it as part of the session, but on reflection, someone else watching you has seen what a profound impact that has had during the session, or or on a child. Then to get that feedback is quite rewarding and endorses what you're doing, and also gives you an opportunity in a safe environment after the session to talk about things that, now what about this, what do you think I should do, talk about organisation of the grouping, and how to support challenging situations is really, really useful.
And mentoring can work really well. We've actually done virtual mentoring for a while. For example, I'm in Derbyshire and I was mentoring somebody in Cornwall. So I'm not going to nip down there and watch them, but they were able to send me a video. And the video is quite important because it's done from the back of the class. We don't see the children's faces, although we obviously delete the video afterwards. But we're able able to ring the group leader up and have a good discussion about it. And that's worked really well, and they can feel really supported. So sometimes your mentor is able to come and visit in person, but it also works really well like that. So we're doing three sessions of 3 hours long. That's going to cost $150, which feels very reasonable. The mentoring sessions for the first year, 150, but once you're up and running and going, you only need 1 session per year to keep yourself up to date. And then we have a personal professional membership of £30 per annum, which feels quite reasonable, particularly when you can do group leading to 30 children at a time. So now comes the time for any questions. So I'm going to stop my sharing on my screen, she says with great confidence. Let's see if that'll work. Exit. Marvellous.